head. Or the blade driven right inside the stomach. It'd be spun inside the stomach. All the stomach, guts pulled out. You would literally... By choice of clan soldier, we want to kill you slowly, much pain as possible. Are you married?
No.
No plans?
No.
Should have lied.
Well, one of the favourite ways was straight between the legs, yeah? Smile, smile. He'd then be lifted on it and... Yeah. Even worse. And both groups been through. No, we've not finished with you yet. Both groups been through Glencoe.
Yep.
Yes.
You all know the story about the massacre of Glencoe.
Yep.
And those horrible Campbells.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Campbells are still not very well liked in this part of the Highlands, but if he was a Campbell, he'd get a special treatment. And that hook, you know where it's going, don't you? The hook would go up his bum, but it wouldn't be carried on, it would be pushed into his bum, and then he'd be lifted on this, and his own weight and drives that right through his body. So his legs are down here, and this will be inside his chest. He'd then be lifted up onto it, and he'd be bounced, and that hook and blade will be ripping the inside of him out. And we wasn't too far away from home, I'd carry on bouncing him home. And in the pot you go. Aye, Campbell's make good soup. Literally was a petty king. And he would live in the same locality, but he wouldn't be living in a place like this. In the smaller clans, the clan chief was just one of the boys, you know, and would live maybe a little bit better. But some of the clan chiefs were very, very rich, you know, and lived a life, you know, of royalty, really. But even a clan chief of a small clan, his word was law. Everybody would do exactly what they were told by the clan chief, on pain of death as well. Yeah. So they were very, very powerful people. Yeah. Anyone else?
Where did you get the metal from to make the weapons?
Well, again, there was iron ore up here in the hills. If you got iron ore and there's limestone so you could smelt it, you can make rough iron.
Yeah.
If you've got iron, you can make it into steel by carbonising it. But there was never sufficient iron in Scotland to make all the weapons, because every army in the world used broadswords. The claymore and these weapons were unique to Scotland. So most of these broadswords, you tell them where they come from, the best sword makers in the world.
Toledo, Spain.
Yeah, Toledo.
Toledo. Oh.
Yeah, most of the broadswords were made in Toledo in Spain, and even to this day they make the finest swords. And they would come through France, into Ireland, over here. But as I say, the English armies were using broadswords. There was never enough iron in this country, well certainly not in Scotland, so the traditional weapons were made in Scotland, but everybody used broadswords, and most of them would have been imported, yeah. Yeah. Anyone else there?
Where did you learn to make, fold?
Sorry.
Where did you learn to fold the traditional clothing?
Where did I learn?
How?
Now?
From who? Who taught you how to fold the traditional
My
clothes?
father. Yeah.
Okay.
And his father taught him. And I've taught my son.
Is that how you come into possession of all the weapons as well?
Again, you've got to have an interest in them, and they look simple weapons, but when we do reconstructions, you know, you've got to be very, very careful, and it's like a dance, you've got to choreograph it so that everybody knows what you're doing, because these weapons will damage you. They're not razor sharp now, but they don't need to be the speed that they would be going. So it's, you must probably like this little story. I was born up in the Highlands. My father come back from the last World War, and there was no work here. And you have a choice, you can either go on social benefits or look for work. And my father, including lots of others, my father went down to Liverpool. I was 4.5 years of age at that time. And you like this, I went to school with John Lennon. Did the same stuff as John Lennon. Aye. But from 8 years of age, I was always running away from home. bearing in mind in those days there was no motorways, take you 3 or 4 days. Coming back up here, and then got into the climbing scene up here in Scotland. Still travelling up every weekend, and then I was with Cairngorm Mountain Rescue Team for 30 years. Every other weekend used to come up here, drive all the way up Friday night after work, and then drive back home. And then I was lucky enough to retire at 50. And the first thing I did was come back here. But I was well known. I used to be a big climber, you know, professional climber in the Himalayas, Mount Everest, Annapurna, Makaroo, all the big ones. And I've done these shows all over the world because it become a passion. I felt whenever I come up to Scotland and see my cousins, you know, they used to take the mickey out of me. Go on, you're English, go on. And they'd never let me play. All my relatives in Scotland were in pipe bands. They never let me have a blow of the pipes.
So when you die, the show will die with you? So when you pass away, the show will die with you?
I bought a chancer to learn how to play the tunes, and I bought a set of bagpipes, and I'd come up on New Year's Eve when they're having a Ogmany outside the door and playing the pipes outside, and we couldn't believe it. Yeah, so no, it was a passion of mine, you know, and to learn more and more about how my ancestors lived, you know. Maybe if I'd lived all the time in Scotland, I wouldn't have felt that way, but every time I used to come up, my cousins used to say, "Come on, bugger off, you're English," you know. So, yeah.